Test, test. Good on me? Can you hear me? All right. Hello. Nice to see you all here. I think this must be already 35 people, or almost 35 people. Glad to see you. Thank you for coming. We have two really exciting talks today. One talk was cancelled by Open Circle because of sickness. We are happy to see you here. On our own behalf, we are looking for Ansible engineers. So if you are bored at your current employer, just let me know and let's talk a little bit. So yeah, all set. So have fun with the first talk of Linux Zurich. Yeah, have fun.
Okay. So this also works, nice. Let's see if this works too. It worked a minute ago when you tested it, so... Great. Yeah. Okay. Other one. There we go. Welcome from me too. Happy to see you all here. Let's start with some questions, quick questions. Who knows Linux Zurich? Who has heard of us before? Nice. Who knows LFOps? Yeah. Somewhat. And who uses LFOps, either directly or as an inspiration for their own roles? Okay, well, maybe we can change that at some point. Let me introduce myself. I'm Navid Sassan, and I'm with Linux Zurich for 4 years by now. We are founded in 2016 and are an IT service provider located in Zurich. Currently we have 6 employees. The slide is a little outdated. And we provide enterprise support for Linux and open source, basically helping hand for IT departments. What is LFOps? LFOps is a collection of roles and playbooks and plugins for Ansible that allow you to manage a Linux-based data center and cloud infrastructure. It is inspired by DevOps, which is a similar project focused on Debian, but LFOps is focused on RHEL because 95% of our customers use RHEL. Some roles also work with Debian or Ubuntu, but we focus on RHEL. We incorporate our best practices and our sensible defaults in LFOps and try to set up everything according to our likings. One of the advantages for us is that it's open source on GitHub and provides transparency for our customers so they can check how their data center is being maintained. The first commit was in February 2022 and the first release was a month later in March. Why did we do this? What is this for? It's our main tool. We use Ansible and LFOps therefore daily to manage VMs all across different data centers. From VM deployment to system maintenance, application installation and maintenance. So basically the full life cycle of a VM. And we always have the enterprise use case in mind, so we include hardening, monitoring and backups. Let's have a closer look at each of those topics. VM deployment. We deploy VMs similarly to Terraform, which means that we just use the already existing API from the cloud provider and call that to create VMs, adjust sizing, increase memory. Many Ansible modules for this are already present, so it's relatively easy to do this. And we don't need the additional step of Terraform and then Ansible. We just use Ansible from the start. Here you can see a selection of which cloud providers we currently support in LFOps. Infomaniac VM, which is based on OpenStack in the background, so other OpenStack-based cloud providers should work as well. Exascale, Hetzner, and KVM, which also works in the same way as cloud providers provision their VMs. So we have a base image, and then you run cloud init on it, even though it's local. So we can test stuff locally that we would then deploy to a cloud. Let's have a look at the next step, system maintenance. This is a short selection of our most used system roles with the different categories. We have networking, pretty self-explanatory, some security roles, basic repositories, sensible defaults. Those are the roles that ensure that the system does what we think and it should do by default. So, for example, it should have a fully qualified domain name. It should have the correct time zone, and so on. Then we have SSH, pretty self-explanatory as well. Groups with SSH keys, users with SSH keys. Mailing, we like to get mails from our servers when something isn't working. And then we have automatic backup updates, backups, and monitoring, of course. For example, not listed is kernel settings, which is one role which is mainly used by other database roles, like MariaDB server. So MariaDB server needs certain kernel settings, which are set by kernel settings role. Let's go to the next step, applications. We currently have around 70 application roles in the new version, and about half of them are listed here with the different categories. I think most of them are pretty self-explanatory, some databases, application server, and services. And then we have some tools that either are required by other roles or, in case of the tools role, help the sysadmin do troubleshooting on the system by installing bash completion, JQ, iftop, and nano for people who prefer that over Vim. The next thing that we provide are setups. Setups are playbooks that incorporate multiple roles into one play. This means they are more complex, and the roles in each playbook are coordinated to each other. That means they rely heavily on injection, dependency injection. I will explain that later on. And the next example for that is, for example, the setup basic, which is an extensive set of roles that provides those sensible defaults that you saw in the last slide. Setup WordPress is a little bit more complicated. It sets up a MariaDB server, fitting kernel settings and backups, for example. Same with setup Nextcloud. It also requires MariaDB, so it installs MariaDB with the fitting kernel settings. And then Collabora for web editing, for example, and Cotorn for voice or IP, and so on and so forth. So these give you a finished working system in the end. Like you can run this playbook, and in the end you have an application that works as you would expect it to work. Let's look at some key concepts, how we accomplish those playbooks, for example. Those are used throughout the whole of LFOps, and the ones who were here last time might remember some of these, and I will go quickly over them for the rest. Let's start with our playbooks. They are read-only, and they are checked into the source control, which means you as an end user shouldn't change them, shouldn't need to change them. But sometimes you still want to enable or disable a role. For example, you know, oh, this server already has this repository, or I don't want this configuration on this server. So we allow you to change this via the skip vars. For example, here you can see the docker skip repo docker variable, which allows you to tell this to not install the repo docker and just install docker by itself. The advantage of this is that it's documented in the inventory, which host doesn't have, like which host deviates from the standard. So you can grab, for example, for this variable, and you see all the hosts that don't have the repo installed, and else you can assume that the default applies and the repo is deployed. The assignment of hosts to playbooks is done via the predefined host group. For example, here you would add the host to the LFOps Docker group, and it would get this playbook. Dependency injection, one of the most useful features. The idea is that we do separation of concern. So we have one role that has one responsibility, one application that it should manage. And then the question is, how do they interact? For example, I have a WordPress role that wants a certain database with a certain user with certain permissions. And I have a MariaDB server roles that knows how to create them. And the solution is that the WordPress role has that saved somewhere in its own role and then tells the MariaDB server role, hey, please create these users and these databases for me. So each role does the thing that it knows best, and it's separated which role does what. Next one is version handling. Especially MariaDB is a prominent example for this one. They changed their defaults on every minor version, and we somehow need to manage that with Ansible because our customers don't always want to update instantly, so we have to have different versions in Ansible. How we are doing this is we dynamically determine the actually installed version, so we don't have the problem that somebody else updated it or we updated it and didn't change the variable or something. It doesn't deploy the wrong config. It checks which version is installed, takes that, and then chooses the appropriate config file to deploy. Then we use raw configs, or something we call raw configs. Sometimes applications are too complex to actually display all the options they have in YAML format. It would just load the YAML and make everything way too complicated. So we use the raw config, which allows the user to input the config language of the end application. For example, here, for Apache, vhosts are very complicated. So we try to provide some default vhost, for example, a redirect vhost that accomplishes the most used scenarios. But if you need to do something more special, you can say, hey, I want a raw template, and then just write your own vhost from scratch. The advantage is that it's still managed in Ansible, it's still under version control, and you can still throw the VM away and set it up again from Ansible without having to over-engineer the Ansible role to support all of the hundreds of Apache directives. Then we have standardized READMEs, which should be the main entry point if anyone uses the roles. So you can quickly glance over the README, which has always this structure, and you should be able to use the role. The idea is that you shouldn't have to look at the YAML source code just to understand how to use it. Let's get to some highlights. Our Apache HTTP role. As mentioned before, it does completely manage everything Apache does. So from modules to configs to vhosts, you can manage all of that. We have Ansible. It allows injection, so other roles can tell it, hey, I'm Nextcloud, for example, I want this vhost with those settings, so I'm working properly, and Apache does that. We also use Debian-style folders because that's easier for debugging and troubleshooting on the server itself. If you have to fix something, you can quickly unlink the config and determine if that was the cause or not. And the most interesting feature is that we adhere to CIS by default, which is the Center of Internet Security, which gives out guidelines how to configure Linux systems and Linux applications, for example Apache, to achieve the maximum possible security, analog to other standards like HIPAA or STIG. Of course, that is not 100% guaranteed. It depends on your end configuration, but by default, it should be conform. Next is the Isinga 2 master monitoring. The idea is that you can run this playbook, which is quite extensive. It has about 30 roles in there. And then you have a working monitoring system with monitoring plugins, the configuration for those plugins, and the Isinga web modules that are small submodules for monitoring, for example, for integration of dashboards or configuration via the web GUI. It also installs an InfluxDB, which is a time series database, which automatically stores the check results. And it installs Grafana, which can be used for visualization and dashboarding. And all of that with more or less a single Ansible run. Then Bitwarden. We also have the problem of secret management. We don't like Ansible Vault because then you have to input the password for every run, complicated, and it's not that easy to edit them. And we would like to have the same source for Ansible and for us humans. So if I have to log in somewhere into the web GUI and the password was set by Ansible, I don't want that to be two different sources. I want that to be the same. So our solution to this is Bitwarden. We use Bitwarden for ourselves, and Bitwarden provides an API. So we wrote multiple Ansible integrations, a lookup plugin and a module for Bitwarden, which allows you to generate passwords and then use them again for your place. Let me quickly show you how that would look in a real-life scenario. Let's see if I can put that there. So, okay. We have an inventory here called Meetup, and there we have a host var. If we look at that, let's say this is a MariaDB server, and we have a backup user, a dump user, and that needs some sort of credential. Now, I don't really care what the credential is, what the password is, so I don't need to set it. I just tell it, hey, I want you to have a password with the host name, the purpose, and this username. And then a folder ID, that's a concept from Bitwarden. I'm telling it, hey, store this in this folder in my Bitwarden account. This looks something like this. This is the folder. It's called www.test here on the left, and currently it's empty. So what happens now when I run this playbook is I expect it to create a password and then save it and then give it back to Ansible to put in the config file. So let's see. For that, I'm calling Ansible playbook with the inventory. Would help if I spelled it right. Then I tell it I want a Linux subject, LFOps MariaDB server, and I have a tag for showing this today, so it doesn't take long. So let me run this. This will take a moment, and then, yeah, I forgot something. It will complain, connection refused. Oh, you can't see that. Let me, yeah.
To set up the group locally?
No, we use the hosted version. I think you can see this. So the error is connection refused. Bitwarden has a little bit of a weird concept where you don't use the official API that they have because it's not documented, but you have to run an API locally on your laptop, which is then used, and then it relays that to the official API. So what I have to do is I have to start the local API. You do that with Bitwarden, that's a command line tool, serve. And now we should be able to do this again. And should get it changed. This will take a moment because in the background it's generating the password, sending that to Bitwarden, storing that there, and then giving it back to Ansible. So now we have it changed. So if I connect to this VM and look at the config file, we see I have the MariaDB dump, that's the username I specified, and this config file, for example, because I reinstalled this VM, it doesn't exist anymore. This should take a little less time, yep, and we have it changed again. And I expect the password to be the same when I go check. Same password as above. FFF and above was the same. If I go double check that in Bitwarden, we can see if we load this, yeah, we have a new item which is called according to the naming scheme we told it. It has the host name as prefix, then it has the purpose, which was MariaDB. It used the username that I told it, and the password that we saw in the config file as well. So the great point of this is we don't have passwords in the Git files anymore, or in the inventories anymore, and we have one single source of passwords. That is very convenient to use for us, and very easy to use with Ansible as well. Now I have to find the slide where I left off.
How do you access them the Bitwarden or the item?
Sorry again?
How do you access Bitwarden? I mean, is there username, password, is there a token?
Username, password, and second factor or tokens. Yeah.
So you can segment the Bitwarden, so you can have different tokens for different.
We have different collections, they're called in Bitwarden, which are basically just groups of items, and then you can give them to different people and have different permissions on them. So, next, finally, what's new in version 2? It was released this morning, brand new. There are countless changes and it's constantly evolving. We have 116 new roles and playbooks, 23 new closed issues, and around 63,000 changed lines of code. It doesn't really make sense for us to use SEM version or releases for Ansible because we use it daily anyway, so it has to work for us. So we constantly fix things that don't work and constantly add new things that work because we test them before we release them. We commit them into the main branch because we have to rely on that tool, and our customers and other people do too. So we just use the main branch. The main branch is productive for us. So the releases are mostly for Ansible Galaxy because they require a versioning scheme. So we did another release today, mostly to show here. But yeah.
How do you test?
Mm-hmm.
How do you test?
Mainly by using it. I know it's not perfect, but we use it that frequently and we implement the things that we need right now. So it's basically tested for the use case that we had in that moment because we write it or we fix the bug and then we use it and then we know it works for that scenario. Yeah. We document in the README on what OS it works. So if we run it on a different system, Debian for example, we see it works, everything works fine, then we write it into the README. It's like tested on Debian, Rocky 8, Rocky 9, whatever. So it's documented, so we know what works, but generally it's just that we generally use it every day.
But for CIS, for instance, you say it's CIS compatible.
What compatible, sir?
So that means that every day you redo the CIS playbook to be sure?
No, but like, if there isn't a change, we don't have to retest it generally. Like there's very little dependencies between them generally. And if you change something, you're responsible to test the effects you had. Yeah. We are planning to increase like CI/CD and automated tests, but it's a lot of effort for solving a problem that we currently don't really have because it works for us because we use it every day. Yeah. Well, I think I was a little fast, but to summarize, can you use LFOps for yourself? It is very hard to write generic roles and playbooks, but we try to make them as generic as possible. So we hope that you could use at least some roles or take them as inspiration for your own systems, own roles. It is definitely battle tested. It is used every day by us and multiple of our customers and other firms too. If you need help, we offer service and support for Ansible and other open source themes, everything that we maintain with Ansible. And if you liked LFOps and find it interesting, you can leave a star on GitHub and rate it on Ansible Galaxy. Thanks for your attention. Do you have any questions? Yep.
I have a question regarding the Django 2 integration. Did you also set it up basically with Ansible or just the maintenance, like adding hosts or commands? Or
Both. Well, hosts and commands is a different topic, but we set up the master completely with Ansible from scratch. We set up agents completely with Ansible, and the agent is responsible to register against the master. So that is solved with that. And for config and commands, we have a different project, which are our monitoring plugins, where we generate director configs which are then imported into the director via Ansible again.
Okay, and you completely do everything with directory, including the master zone and the master host. So you don't have this in the configuration files. You just you set it up and you start right on with the directory API.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And most of the time we have a single master, so we don't really have to change much about the zones. But Ansible also can do a master primary setup automated.
Yeah, cool. I'm now in the process of setting up Ichingo 2 infrastructure to migrate our Ichingo 1 infrastructure, so I'm particularly interested in that. Another small question, do you have to set up on Red Hat or Debian? Because they just made it non-free for the RPM versions. How do you handle that? Especially with the agent, which must be also deployed on RPM systems.
Yeah, we still use Red Hat as a base for the master because we have that problem anyway because we have Red Hat clients. So we have that problem anyway with the paywall. Just as an information, you can have 20 hosts. If you don't have more than 20 hosts, you can get a free license for that.
We have a couple of hundred, but thanks for asking.
Plus, there's a few quite good 100% binary compatible.
Okay. Yeah.
Clouds like Linux and Linux.
Yeah, but the problem is you can't get the RPMs anymore, the Isinga RPMs.
Okay.
Yep. Other questions?
Any more questions? Pascal?
I was very interested in the Bitwarden integration. Did you look at other systems as well, like HashiCorp Vault or so? And what made you choose to integrate with Bitwarden?
I have to say I wasn't that involved in that decision. I don't have that many reasons, but from what I know, HashiCorp Vault is way more complicated to run and to use, especially to use as a human. I think it's way easier to integrate with Ansible, but it's way harder to use as a human. But don't quote me on that.
It's not intended for human consumption, it's just an API.
Yeah, makes sense.
We looked at it and people, oh no, I don't, how do I search there? No, you can't search.
You can't, okay,
You've got
yeah.
to organize it.
Because you have a folder structure and everything, right? Yeah.
And, but it has its merits.
Any more questions? No? So, thank you, Navid,
Welcome.
for your talk. So if you want to get some snacks before the next talk, feel free. In the meantime, I want to thank the sponsors, Linux Fabrik, Open Circle, and Stick, Pascal. Yeah, thank you very much. Without you, that wouldn't be possible. So enjoy your snacks. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. Right? welcome back to the next talk by Pascal and Lutz. I've been informed there's a third talk right spontaneously by Jerome. So we are looking forward to a third talk today. Yeah, so the next talk, say hello to Lutz and Pascal. I've heard there's a lot of improvisation, so yeah, let's go.
That was a secret. So yeah, I will wait. So, hi everybody, and welcome to the Ansible Meetup and our talk about the topic Getting Started with Ansible Navigator. About us. I'm Pascal. I have a company, Stauffer IT Consulting, called Stick, and Lutz is working for Centris. They are a service provider for Swiss health and accident insurances, and we are working together since a few years, and our last implementation was the introduction of the Ansible Navigator, and that's the reason why we have our talk today. So first, also some questions. Who of you use or used Ansible in a container? Okay. Who of you know Ansible execution environments? A bit more, yeah. And who of you knows Ansible Navigator? Okay. Who of you use Ansible Navigator in the daily work? Okay. We feel you. Well, it's you. And
In terms of
yeah, sorry.
as part of the automation.
Yeah, that's the next question. Who of you use the Red Hat automation platform or AWX? Okay. So some of you may have contact with execution environments in the future or already now, and you don't know it. So before I start with the Ansible Navigator, I have to introduce execution environments. Execution environments is the base for the Ansible Navigator. It's a container image that's based on a Linux OS image. And additional are Linux packages and binaries installed in the container. On top of that is a Python installation with required Python packages and libraries installed via pip. And also installed in the image, in the container, is Ansible itself. You all know the installation of the Ansible with all the binaries, Ansible, Ansible Playbook, Lint, Vault, and so on. And on top of that are additional collections, Ansible collections, which you can use in your products. So you see the image from a Red Hat page. So thanks Red Hat for that great image. You see that there the execution environments is basically collections, libraries, and the Ansible core in a container image. So what's the idea or the use case for that? The execution environments are used in the Red Hat Ansible automation platform or the open source project AWX as runtime for the job templates or workflows. For people of you who don't know the Red Hat Ansible automation platform, it's basically a platform where a Red Hat Tower is included. So maybe Red Hat Tower is something you know, or AWX. And the execution environments are used or can be used in the platform in different ways. So you can have multiple execution environments. For example, if you want to test a new Ansible version or a new collection, you can just build another execution environment and use that execution environment for a single job template or for your whole project. So you can differ based on a single job template to just run another Ansible version for your job template. So you can test new versions. Then another use case could be that you have a requirement for another collection or a collection version in a project. So you can use there another execution environment with other dependencies, or if you use your platform with different teams. For example, every team has other requirements, other Ansible version that are they using in their daily work, so you can build that with Ansible execution environments and have different execution or Ansible versions in your daily life. So finally, the introduction of Ansible Navigator. Ansible Navigator is a text-based user interface to use these execution environments on the console. So it's an interface to interact with the execution environments. And in that, you can just replace your Ansible Playbook, and the other binaries you know in your daily life with the Ansible Navigator. So the Ansible Navigator is integrated, is interacting with the execution environments, and there all the binaries are included. So yeah, the requirement to use an execution environment with Ansible Navigator is that you have an installation of the Ansible Navigator. That installation can be done via pip, the Python package manager, or from the OS package. Then you need a container runtime like Podman or Docker to run the image, and of course you need an execution image, execution environment image, and a configuration file where you define which image you want to use in your Ansible Navigator runtime. So, that's the end of the slide battle. I can now hand over the mic to Lutz for the interesting part, the demo of Ansible Navigator.
Okay, I hope it's the interesting part. I'm not so sure about that. And I'm lost. Okay, it just will take hours. Probably the demo will be faster than my fight with the mic. As Pascal already told, there's a complete new interface for Ansible, and it makes... Okay, the font a bit bigger. Okay, good. There's a complete new command line interface. It makes all other commands almost unnecessary. So basically, we don't install Ansible on our jump machine any longer. We just install the Navigator. And please be aware, if I make some typos and type Ansible Playbook, something will break on my system. And I did that today quite often while I was testing something. Because we have aliases defined, so no one can still use the old commands with the new tool. But in the beginning, I just want to show you the new text-based interface. The Navigator comes with two flavors, I say. The one is the text user interface, and the other is a plain command line tool, so you can do your scripting all along. From this UI, you can choose what you want to do. You can run playbooks, you can investigate your inventory, and do some other fancy stuff. I will start with a simple playbook run. And therefore you have, it's a bit like, you have to be used to VI, so you can use the Navigator. So if you don't like VI, it's probably not the nicest interface you got, but it does its trick. So you use : and then one of the commands shown above. In our case, it will be run. And I'm just starting an installation of a WebLogic on a machine of ours. And you can see the old command line output is not any longer there, at least in the first glance. So in the background, although here it's mentioned it's complete, it's just for the first task that's completed, the jobs are still running, and we can go and investigate a bit more of the jobs that are running. So each of these tasks, you know, from the old style where each task will be displayed and shown to you. In this case, with the navigator, you just get an overview and can then zoom back into each task on each with different levels. Okay, I still have a bit to wait because I need to wait until task 27 is finished. So in the background, we install the Java JDK and some WebLogic stuff.
Do you run it on top of a folder structure that has your...
Yes, basically it's the same folder structure as the Ansible playbooks. You don't have to change anything. It's also the navigator uses the Ansible config file for the Ansible configuration, and on top of that it has its own configuration file to configure the Ansible navigator. So my task is finished. The job is still running, but now I can go to the job number 27. And you can see the task that was executed, in which playbook it was executed, which host. We did some tricks on. And now you may be interested, what is this task really doing? So you can jump to your playbook. Basically, you can using the Jinja 2 templating engine and using the task path or each element of you see and jump right to your playbook, right to the line where this task was happening or what this task was doing. So basically, it just does nothing because I thought I just wanted something to show that's a bit later in the playbook and not just line 1 because that's a bit, you can't see so many things in line 1. So the job is still running, and also the text-based interface gives you the possibility to switch back to your old display. And it's running like the old command line tool. And you are able to scroll back and forth like in your normal shell. It still runs. Also, the navigator text-based interface gives you the opportunity to search in the whole output. And sometimes it's just interesting to see which tasks were all skipped altogether. So you can get rid of all the other output that was displayed and just do a selection on things you want to see. That's used with the :F, and then you can put in whatever string you want. To go back to your original screen, you just delete your search with :F, and then you get everything back. And the installation takes quite some time. Yeah. Okay, I see. So in the meantime, there's another nice feature I'm really fond of, because I don't know how often it happens to you if you run a playbook and then you are thinking, what was changed? What did I really execute it? So the navigator gives the possibility to write a log for each run. So you can afterwards see you did run, a run was happening, and you have the possibility to see what was happening in that run. So I prepared the same installation. I did it already before. I did the installation that's already happening right now as preparation. And these log files are normally named like the playbook you called, and then it gives a timestamp, and then it puts some JSON ending on it. Because I modified the output to get rid of some information from our company, I tampered with that output, and I'm just going to, not Ansible Playbook, Navigator. And I'm just going to show you what was executed before. And the Navigator gives the possibility to call the output that was happening before, and you have the same user interface and can inspect like the way before, the complete output and interface. You can still search what was skipped, how did the original output look like. It looks like almost as the thing you are currently running. And you can investigate it anytime you want. It's also possible to do the replay like the way it was in the Ansible Playbook, as you would have called Ansible Playbook, just afterwards. You switch from the text-based user interface to the text-based user interface, so you switch the mode to standard out, and then you see the playbook right it was before. And even the output is like the Ansible Playbook. Even although I didn't run it, I ran it hours before. So, in the meantime, the other jobs finished successful. And also the navigator gives you some additional information, not only the host where it's run, also how long each task took. So you can investigate without the profiling options which tasks took how long and which were the tasks that took the most time. And if you want to, you can optimize them. As you see, the patch installation took the most time with 3 minutes, but there's nothing I can do about that. And I don't care, because if a patch runs in 5 minutes or in 10, it doesn't matter. I'm only caring about a successful ending. That's basically the run. What's also a nice feature for the navigator is you can see what did I configure in my Ansible configuration at all. So it has a default set, what configuration possibilities you have to configure Ansible, and also did you change something on them. So you can switch to the config, and now Ansible gives an overview of all the possibilities we have to configure, and also what I changed, or what the virtual environment changed. You see the cache plugin is not the default any longer, or the plugin path for our Ansible plugins. You can also use the search command, and you see we changed the private key configuration. So it's using my own private key. Although it's a container and it's running locally, it uses my private key because that folder, the SSH folder, gets mapped into the execution environment, and you can use your private key to connect to your servers without any configuration at all. You don't need to do any special mappings for that. The configuration option gives you just the possibility to view the configuration of Ansible, not to modify it. So be aware, if you try to change something, you have to do it in the config file manually. Genau. The other thing that's probably interesting is how does my execution environment look like? What do I have? What Python version? What OS lies beneath it? So currently I have 2 execution environments. Basically they are based on the same image from Red Hat. Just the difference between these 2 execution environments is just the libraries we included for ourselves. Because in the beginning I thought, it's great, you have execution environment, our vendor gives us an execution environment, I just take that and it will work. It's a bit different like that, because also vendors make errors, and we have the collection for synchronize, Ansible built-in synchronize, and just Red Hat forgot to include rsync into the execution environment. So I had to build my own execution environment to get rid of the error, or just wait until Red Hat fixes it. So that is one of our execution environments. You can have a view at these execution environments. There are general information, which Python packages, and most interesting, I would say, is the Ansible version and collection. As you see, this execution environment comes with Ansible Core pre-built, and then Red Hat put in some collections they deem necessary. I'm not from the networking group, so the Cisco environment is not really necessary for me or for my colleagues, because they don't use that. But it's the supported environment, and just bear with it. We had to implement some of our own collections, for example, the Community General and the VMware collection, which is not visible right now because it's on another server. But basically, you see, you have the minimal setup plus the collections you want or you need. And on top of that, everything else keeps the same. Your complete folder structure just is as before. So I got the question before, how do I work with my own collections or my own roles? And the answer is just like before. You just check out your environment and run Ansible Navigator, and that's it.
It does respect things like collection requirements, YAML and collection and role requirements in the structure.
You have your Ansible CFG, where you just define where are your roles, probably in the same folder like your current folder, and where's your collection folder. That's what I would do. That's for the things you are currently working on. If you have finished your work and your collection is done or ready for production, then you probably would go and build your own execution environment with these collections so other colleagues can use them too. So if you have a final version like LFOps, then you would go and build your own execution environment. And also, one of the benefits of these execution environments, from my point of view, is with the Python virtual environments, it's possible. I'm not a Python developer, so I'm not that fond of the virtual environments. But I have a real problem if I want to put that virtual environment out to my colleagues, because everyone has to run pip install requirements file. If they forgot it, then strange things will happen. The Ansible Navigator configuration file is in our inventory, and you can say, pull that image always. If you have it named properly and versioned properly, you can say, just update my local execution environment if the version number was changed or has changed. And that's great for me, because now all my colleagues use the same environment. So basically that was just the rough overview I wanted to give. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. I found it really great, this Ansible Navigator, getting as input the replay from a JSON, which is in fact already something executed from a previous run. Yeah. Did you ever think about linking it to something executed? I mean, a job template in AAP or AWX, just to avoid connecting to the GUI and getting access to the logs and investigating any error? Because that's something I just thought out of my mind while I was watching and listening.
I'm not quite sure if I get it right. We are using the Ansible automation platform, and also our job templates. Or for the people who don't know job templates, that's just another name for playbooks. Because I don't know why, but Red Hat chose to name that differently in the UI than on the command line. And in the Ansible automation platform, or AWX, we have also the same log, and we can see what went wrong or what didn't. But for development purposes, when we are developing new job playbooks and job templates, it's quite nice to have these playbook runs and JSON files to analyze also afterwards.
So thank you.
You stabilize the playbooks and the roles on your laptop, and then when it's kind of stable again, then you run it with AAP, AWX, so it's easier to...
Most of the time, yeah. The thing is, we are working on a jump machine or a server where each one has its own account, so we are not working on our local machine. And it's very hard to convince people to change their behavior. We started on the command line with Ansible, without Tower, without AWX, and now we have to put some effort to bring people to just use AWX, and currently, so we are using both.
inertia is a thing.
I'm confronted with the same situation as him. My customers are also trying to develop themselves, let's say locally, and they have environment which are differing from each other. This Python env is really great because now we can really set some fix, even if it's disrupted and distributed on each developer's workstation or a jump host. It's never, you are never sure it's the same version. And here we can really ensure that you are using the same execution environment locally, then it will be executed within AAP or AWX.
Yeah, that's the positive way of putting it. I also want to provide you the negative things, because in the past it was the people developed on the jump machine, and then they were forced to put it on tower to run it and give other people the possibility to run. And these two environments didn't work exactly the same. So some, depending on the playbook, it just ran locally, and then when they had to put it on the Ansible controller, it just didn't work anymore because it was complete different setup. The shares weren't available, the files weren't there that were on the jump machine. And now with the execution environment, you have the same drawback everywhere. but it makes it more obvious that you have to put your playbooks in a different way.
Any more?
Who built Ansible Navigator and who is Winston?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's a community project, and also Red Hat is the vendor behind it. So you get support from, if you have it licensed, you can get support for the Ansible Navigator too, because it's not the navigator that's the thing, it's the execution environment that works or doesn't work. And there are, as I said before, there are some drawbacks, and not all commands are currently available directly from the navigator, but I also recommend using the Ansible Navigator version 2, because then they implemented a fancy interface or an exec command, which you can, like in other container environments, start the command that's installed on the machine. For example, you can use the navigator to call Ansible that's installed in the execution environment and do some things that are currently not yet implemented in the navigator itself.
Any more questions?
So, short slide. We've added some links in our presentation. So, for example, at the lab to the Red Hat site, so where you can try out Ansible Navigator and execution environments, and also the documentation with all the subcommands of the Ansible Navigator. So you find a table how we work now without Ansible Navigator and what's the command with Ansible Navigator. So it's quite good overview.
And also the lab Ansible provides, Red Hat provides on Ansible, is quite nice, because it gives you a step-by-step tutorial how to work with the Ansible Navigator. So it's, I don't think it's for free. You just need an account on the Red Hat developer side. The presentation will be online, I think, so you don't have to.
Yeah, it's on YouTube, or you can upload it as well if you want.
Yeah.
Up to you. So, thank you to Lutz and Pascal. Does anyone fancy more snacks? Because I think Cheryl is ready with the next round, so feel free. We will be back in 5 minutes. So, welcome to our last talk for today or for tonight. Just an information, the next meetup will be on the 31st of May, right, Christian? Yeah, 31st of May at Zeckerbe this time, or the next time, yeah. So, happy welcome to Jerome. Thank you for your talk, for being spontaneous. Yeah, let's go.
Thanks for the introduction. I don't want to stay too long between you and the beer, so I will try to keep the timeline and keep input as worse as possible. As everyone today prepared some slides, I took something I presented last year. Don't forget the title. It's not about AWX nor Ansible, in fact. But before we dig in the topic, I just want to present myself. I'm Jerome. I'm a French speaker, but maybe my accent is trying me. And I speak perfectly well Swiss German as well, so if you want to switch to another language, we can. I'm working for DBI services since 10 years now. I started my IT career as an Oracle DBA, like babies, we get babies, and I'm still an Oracle baby. I'm still living in this Oracle world, and I'm trying to support the Swiss Oracle World Community, the Swiss Oracle User Group, as well as the German Oracle community by trying to teach them to work with new technologies like Ansible or AWX, or just moving forward, like deploying your WebLogic on Ansible, which is maybe not so easy as it sounds today. So my talk is completely improvised and comes out of my mind because I'm a lazy guy. I'm really a lazy DBA. I try to automate almost everything I need to do at my work, at home, like doing some VPNs when I'm traveling and happy to access data. And this talk is about something I discovered last summer. So how many of you have already heard about Cloud Init? Or did you already try something with Cloud Init? Do you know what is it? Oh. Few hands raised. Oh, even more. So Cloud Init is a software which is installed by default on on most Unix operating systems, which eases your life by deploying some stuff on Google. Let's say today I will deploy a VPN server on a GCP environment in Zurich, and I want to automatically set up not only an SSH access, which is quite stupid for doing a lab, but really let's try to create an VPN and install an open VPN server automatically with Cloud Init. Because now, since August 2022, Cloud Init allows you to natively run Ansible Playbook. when you deploy the VM. So I will just start a small Terraform script to deploy the infrastructure and let it run. And as I didn't prepare anything, we will use one block I wrote last year and check with the documentation. I will try to give you a feedback of what I learned while trying it out. So who finds the Cloud Init documentation terrible? It's almost not documented at all. You get some features. There are plenty of features. You can do almost everything. But you really need to take time and invest and try and get error, like the Ansible spirit, before you get something productive. Cloud Init has over, I think, 100 such features. You can create users, you can run Ansible playbook natively now, you can run operating system users, you can put some SSH key, you can get secrets, you can do whatever you want. So first, let me just switch to the list. So I can close this really nice presentation. Don't want to present DBI services this evening. So let's move to the module list. First of all, you go to the website and you think there will be a nice reference, so a nice guide. We can compare such Cloud Init features like Ansible modules. I want a module to, let's say, grab a password from, what was a product before, which was compared to Terraform, not to Terraform, to HashiCorp Vault? Exactly. So we have a lot of modules, but first of all, you don't need to take care of this depreciation schedule and versions because it's misleading. It's just here to say this section is deprecated and not a list. That's actually what you can do in Cloud Init and not what is deprecated. So if I switch to the nice Ansible paragraph, you get an information. You can run playbooks with Ansible. And we support such kind of parameter. Installation method, do you want to install it on a Red Hat system with yum install or DNF install? Do you want to install it with pip? What do you want to do with Ansible? Do I want to set up just an Ansible control node? It's possible. And which playbook shall I run to get, in fact, this control node installed? Let's say I want to install Ansible Corp and some additional collections. I can do it as well by using the requirements.yaml of an Ansible Galaxy. Let's say your project needs some external collections. So you can do everything out of the box with Cloud Init now. Instead of doing run command, I want yum install Ansible, yum install Ansible lint, Ansible.-galaxy install -r requirements and so on. This is all natively supported now by Cloud Init. And now it comes to my use case. I want to set up my own VPN on GCP, for instance, or let's say on Oracle Cloud, because I'm Oracle DBA, I can do it as well. And this is just the way it's implemented by Cloud Init. You just do basically an Ansible pool, and everything which is done by Ansible, of course, installing every prerequisites for OpenVPN and so on, that needs to be, let's say, prepared upfront. So what I usually do, I have my source code in my private GitHub repository, and I just want to check out something. So as we are still running out of time between the beer and the demo, I'm just doing something with VI. Let's say I do an apply, not a destroy, but a Terraform apply. Just want to show you, that's my Google account. We do have only one machine running here. It's a local IP address, so it's not accessible from the internet. And here I just want to Terraform one new virtual machine, which will get just a simple public IP, so I can access it whenever I open the firewall from everywhere. or from some specific location. Don't do it. At your company, it will be anyway detected as a security breach, but it's just for demo purposes. On the OpenVPN servers, I have prepared some basic playbooks and all. That's my structure. That's the whole intelligence which is behind Cloud Init. So that's the way of working. I'm used to create some playbooks with step-by-step stuff just for debugging. And I have one Cloud Init playbooks which will roll out automatically when Terraform creates an instance. So Terraform is just calling a user script which called Cloud Init config. And here it goes. Cloud Init, like Ansible, is a declarative language, so it's quite easy to understand and to read it. So forget about the first lines, it's just for my own setup. So I like to have an Ansible user with SSH key for my own, let's say, lab. I do write some files because I need to put the key. I want not always to generate a key, I want the same key to be deployed automatically whenever I destroy it. And here it goes. And now, instead of doing a Terraform playbook, trying to run command to do an Ansible pull, I just use the Ansible module in Cloud Init itself. I do an installed method distro, which means if I deploy on CentOS, which is what is actually acting in background, it will install Ansible core simply with yum install, or let's say now DNF install. And then package. And here you get troubles. Depending on the installation method you choose, if you choose pip or the installation method distro, in the documentation it's just stated you use Ansible with a run user configuration. And this run user only acts when you are using pip install because it doesn't pip install -- user. Not documented. You try it out, you figure it out. I tend to keep the default, so I use the most simple, convenient version for myself, and then roll it like this. And at the end, I do an Ansible pull, and of course, my GitHub repository is protected with a token, which will, by the way, expire tomorrow. And I just run my playbook. That's as simple as that. So, actually now, Terraform deployed the infrastructure, and Cloud Init is running. As I'm not rich, I don't use any 24-core CPU machines. I try to keep it as small as possible so it runs slowly. If you compare it to some performance to your data centers at the company, you will get much faster throughput than I get. So let's try to set to the SSH to the machine first. Ansible. I don't want to do any typo. Okay. I'm connected to somewhere. I just want to jump back to the Cloud Console. And now we have two machines. Both of internal IPs are isolated in a subnet, and one of both become a public IP address, which is now just linked to my domain, and I have a public DNS, so I can connect directly to SSH. But SSH doesn't mean any secure tunnel. I want my OpenVPN server now to be up and running. So Cloud Init acts in several stages. When you get Cloud Init running, your first stage is something locally. It needs to install drivers which are, let's say, protected by each cloud vendor. You get the public DNS from each cloud vendor, so you get some stuff automatically done. And you can add your own customization. I want to have a deployment user like Ansible. I want maybe to install an access management tool like, or let's say, a monitoring agent automatically. There are plenty of possibilities which now can be done natively with Ansible in Cloud Init, instead of just calling Ansible pull scripts with OS commands. And you can monitor the progress oops, not a CD, I want to do a tail. You get always, depending on the stage, some information. You get an overall log file, etc cloud log, where you get what is currently started by cloud in it, and where it is, and there is a second one, this output, sorry, dash output, and I can't sudo, let's do it quickly. I changed to root, so I don't want to get any information, and here it goes. Now you see what I have declared natively with cloud init configuration is run by just an Ansible pool in background. That's pretty cool now, because in a couple of seconds, I will just have my cloud init OpenVPN server up and running. I think in November last year, I blogged about it. So that was my basic idea, to blog it first and create a really nice demo and a really nice presentation, which is, in fact, I plan to give today, but I was not retained for the presentation, but I'm happy to share what I learned. So first of all, I told you, forget about run CMD. Just use an Ansible Cloud Init native module, which is just like this. Exactly what I did before. Now, I kept, for my real-life demo, the distro installation, but here you can go with the pipe version and run only Ansible as run user Ansible, and not root anymore, or whatever user you create on this machine. That's quite nice to have at run. If you want to debug, you will have to. You will fail. I probably invested in my free time at least 5 or 6 evenings to get just this simple stuff running. This command saved my life. Cloud init single name. So now I'm able to cloud init the stuff, and if it fails, tant pis, I can rerun everything. I need some additional commands to reset the cloud init configuration, because cloud init knows at every stage where it runs, and if it runs, let's say, the Ansible stuff, it won't restart it by just restarting any systemd daemon. So you have to clean up some stuff and rerun the command. And now you get, on real time, on the terraformed infrastructure, the real output. And you can really fix either your cloud init configuration if it was wrong, or your playbooks. I don't have any execution environment for testing this. So that's exactly what it does in background. So, sorry, I gave a small example how to set up the control node. It was just for studying. There is no real interest to cloud init a control node. But maybe we want to cloud init WebLogic, or an Oracle database server, or MariaDB, or whatever your imagination is giving you as an input. In my case, I want to stream everywhere when I'm on vacation. So that's the stuff from the demo, and you can really do a lot. I even installed fail to ban and trying to restrict access if I leave SSH open for my own lab. Of course, except the Oracle Cloud, you don't have any Bastion service by default, so you have to do some kind of cloud init or OpenVPN stuff. So now I think I'm done with the setup, and let's quickly move to the second part. I'm really stupid. I didn't prepare any command. I'm still on the server. So now my server is running, but I need to declare my client. So I'm just, as I'm lazy, I'm downloading and generating a certificate for my OpenVPN client. So now it's done. And now this is my OpenVPN client, and I just want to import the new client I just generated now with Ansible and open. And tada, I'm connected to my VPN and I can start to redirect my Zatu stream from France, Spain, everywhere I want to be. And finally, I'm now able to start anything I want to test as an Oracle DBA. So now I have two commands. I cloud init something. And if I want to test something for Oracle with a large virtual machine, I'm ready to do it. Like I will be in my computing, in my consultancy infrastructure and run some stuff. But mostly we are restricted. And here, of course, I pay on my own, but I'm free. I can use it for private stuff. And I can do some nice presentation in external events. So thanks for listening. I hope it was not too short. I tried to keep 20 minutes. Any questions?
Anyone? Everybody hungry?
They want beer.
Oh yeah, hobby, yeah. No questions? So, thank you, Jerome. Thank you much. Enjoy your dinner.